August 18th, 2019. Today I want to talk about a nuclear reactor explosion in Russia last week that killed 5 top scientists there. As usual, the Russian government is trying to keep this away from people, keep the media out of it, and the lies of the Russian government to the people are quite apparent here. What this is, it goes back to an old project named Pluto here in the United States in the 50s during the Cold War. We only had 2 ways to deliver a nuclear warhead to Russia, say, in this case. An Intercontinental Ballistic Missile, right, an ICBM. Or we would have nuclear bombs on a B-52 during the days of Strategic Air Command in a combined effort, so we could fly over with B-52s and drop nuclear bombs, as well as launch them as an intercontinental ballistic missile. So the government, the U.S. government, was looking for a third way to be able to nuke Russia. Yeah, the Cold War, that's why they called it that. And so were the Russians looking for more ways to nuke us as it went. And some crazy ideas were born, and who would think the Russians would pick up on it and do it again? But they are, or have and did, and people are dead. Project Pluto was to take an ICBM, an intercontinental ballistic missile, power it with a nuclear reactor, allow it to be launched and fly for days, maybe months, theoretically longer. And this reactor would propel a missile in flight perpetually for 30 days, 60 days or more, and carry the capability to drop small nukes or a big one. And furthermore, this reactor on this intercontinental ballistic missile was unshielded, which means it's a dirty reactor. And that means that the reaction inside is not protected on the outside. So once the ICBM is put together, even before it's launched, there's radiation spewing out of this reactor, just already. And then they launch the ICBM, and as it flies, it's dropping radiation all over the place as it flies. Because it's a dirty reactor. It's an unshielded reactor. So a project called Pluto in America devised this plan in the 50s, tried to perfect it in the 60s, and by 1965, they abandoned it because they said it was too dangerous because of all the radiation. It was uncontrolled on the ground. When they tried to put it on an airplane to try to maybe drop it or launch it, they had to shield the crew so much. It was so much lead, they couldn't have got the plane off the ground. So they figure out these ways, and they end up scrapping the program around 1965. Now, so a year ago, Putin came out in Russia and said, oh, we've done it. We created the ultimate ICBM, and it was known in America as Project Pluto, but it was a SLAM missile, S-L-A-M. A SLAM missile is what we called it. And so the Russians make one, think they perfected it a year ago. They're testing it. Last week, one explodes on the ground with the scientists there. So the idea behind this shows us the ultimate terror of I'll nuke you, or nuclear war. When in reality, we know if we nuked another country or they do it to us, then the land is uninhabitable for thousands and thousands of years. You can't farm there, you can't live there, and radiation sickness is the worst. If you're not killed outright at flashpoint, radiation sickness is you bleed from every orifice, it takes time, and you die. There's no cure. So all they can do is ease your pain. So the reality is nuclear war is like archaic now. But nonetheless, 5 very intelligent professors in Russia died last week dealing with an unshielded reactor that we tried to create, that the Russians were trying to create back in the Cold War in the 50s. And it still don't work. It's still a bad idea. And let alone, as a philosopher, let alone as a humanist, I can sit right here and tell you the idea of a dirty ICBM flying around in the atmosphere, well, somebody needs to use it, dropping radiation everywhere it goes, at whatever level, shows the ignorance of human on a level of what warfare makes you stupid in some ways, because you create technologically beyond your ability to cope and manage the aftermath. This is a real problem. War accelerates negative things that don't get contemplated enough to know what will happen after the fact. And that's when we're left with these radioactive messes, just like Innuit talk in the Bikini Atoll chain of islands. It's below this on Facebook. If you're on YouTube, it's here too, Innuit talk. And the reality is, where we buried radiation, it'll be hot for 23,000 years. The reality is, it's not very humanistic to try to nuke each other. I know we have to keep even with the Russians or any other country because war exists. People are dying in it. We're in a 19-year engagement. People are dying. So it's reality. But wow, we're going to fly around a nuclear warhead that drops radiation on people up until we use it. And in Project Pluto, with the SLAM missile, they had it set up here in America. So not only would it drop the nukes, it would make this nice loop-de-loop and fly back through before the explosion. So its radiation from the reactor would also explode with the nuclear bombs. So to make sure they got radiated enough. This denotes the purest human condition on Earth outside of nature while still trying to utilize nature. Or use it. Building on top of nature, not building within nature, is problematic. And if we're going to set out to spread radiation on something so we can ultimately kill people, in the meantime, we're going to spread radiation, we got real problems, mentally and otherwise. And suddenly, other things don't seem to be as important. Y'all take care. Hope you have a good day. Peace, y'all.